Hi everyone, Brent Wessler with VRC. We're just going to be starting in about a minute or so. I have some cool things to show today. We're going to be talking a little bit about what you can do around document capture, specifically in Docstar, and then what can you do with ancillary products that augment Docstar capture. The standard features out of the box. So what we want to do is educate you as end users and product champions of Docstar to show you what you can do from a capture perspective. A lot of people don't leverage Docstar to its full degree, and a lot of you might not know how to set some of these things up. So I'm going to show you standard ways. These are things that are included in Docstar's core software. And then I'm going to get in some advanced stuff. Generally, you're going to be able to do any type of desktop scanning. So if you do have a USB attached scanner to your PC, we support ISIS and Twain scanning. What does that mean? That means basically those are the two main protocols to drive a scanner. Okay. We can also scan whether you're in the cloud or on premise, doesn't matter. Batch importing, this is one of those like hidden features. So we're going to show how we do that. Microsoft Office integration, our print driver, so you can print into the solution. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about Zone OCR, which is optical character recognition. So we're looking for computer generated text. Our Lasso OCR, this is a nice little feature a lot of people don't know about. And full text content OCR, so the ability to capture all the text on a page. But if you don't have the Docstar client and you're trying to capture documents, you're going to struggle. There is some basic stuff you could do with it, but what is the Docstar or EPICOR ECM client? That's a little application that runs in your system tray, and it allows you to do things like drive a local peripheral scanner. So if you want to do any type of Microsoft Office integration or printing into the solution, or the ability to use the browse button on import and select multiple documents, and auto view and pre-processing. So you kind of really need the client to do any level of intelligent capture. Okay, so from the capture tab in Docstar, you have basically desktop scan, which is that top accordion, and then import, which is the bottom accordion. So again, desktop scanning, we support a whole bunch of different capabilities. You have to have the client local, and you can see things like auto size detection. So if you're scanning letter size and then ID cards, we have the ability to do things like remove blank pages. Right? We have the ability to separate, and I'm going to talk a little about separation in general in the next couple slides. So this is essentially Docstar EPICOR is a great solution for any type of scanning and high volume scanning. So I will say a few things. When it comes to scanning, a lot of our customers like to scan in color, which is fine. You're just going to know that that's going to eat up a lot more storage space than a typical black and white document. So when you're getting into projects that revolve around OCR, optical character, reading text off of a page, or any type of automation, you're probably going to want a black and white image. It OCRs better. And then I'd also look at the DPI. So standard is 200 DPI. I usually like to put that to 240 or 300, and that's the intensity of the dots per inch. So the higher the DPI, the better quality, but at the same point, the increase in the file's storage size. All right, the import tab has less options because we're not driving a scanner and we're not doing things like auto size detection and things like these. This is when you're importing documents directly into the system. Okay, so some of the features that you have here are the ability to put image enhancement, some rotation, and blank page. So same on a scan, you can use blank page detection, and it will separate documents based every time it hits a blank page. And you'll see there in the blank page threshold and blank page margin. The higher the threshold, the more forgiveness there is in terms of how white that separator page is. And then you'll see 10, 10, 10 there in the screenshot. That's how far out we're looking for white. In a lot of cases, you're going to have a little black border if you're scanning or importing a document. And so we usually would increase that to 200, 200, 200, 200. So it looks further in on the page for white. So if you're finding that blank page separators aren't separating correctly, those are the two things you'd want to tweak. All right. Again, batch import, this is all managed through the client itself. I'm going to show a few of those capabilities, but this is where you would set up hot folder monitoring. So you're using your photocopiers and you want to capture from a photocopier into Docstar. That's where you'll use this Docstar client batch import. I have a very simplistic example of that. Now, if you are geographically distributed and your offices are all over the country and you really have no ability to scan directly into your server that's on premise, that's where emails come in, right? And so you got to be careful there. You don't want to put PHI or PI, confidential information, in an email, but email for like things like invoices and other non-confidential documents is the best way to capture in the field if you have field workers. And again, Docstar has a full mobile app, so you can capture in the field if you need to, but also allows you to have, if you have construction trailers or various locations that just have no access to your internal Docstar, this is the best way, email. So you email it to a defined box, contracts at your domain, AP invoices at your domain. You certainly don't want to put this on your personal or your work email. Okay, and then basically we can also monitor for backfile jobs. So for instance, if you are scanning a bunch of backfile or you have VRC doing some of that for you and you want to import all those documents, that's where we can take a CSV or an XML file. So you have a bunch of data, and associated with the data is a PDF or some sort of image file. And what happens is Docstar will allow you to bulk ingest that documents and data. So this is the client application, and you're going to notice a few things here. One, the batch import tab, and this is really where I'm going to be focused today. And this is how we can come in and automate the capture. And so this is a very simplistic type of setup here, where I basically just want to monitor this directory, this folder, and then every time I grab from that folder, delete it, and then bring it into this contracts workflow and content type. And you see here it's scheduled to run. So what ends up happening is every time a document is dropped there, it would automatically bring it into this contract workflow. Okay, but as you can see, we could also go to things like email here, where we can monitor an email. Lots of additional capabilities here for setup. And you will also notice on the modules tab here, this is where you're going to set up the printing and the office integration, which we'll show a little later. Now, for those of you that are not sure where to find the client, the best and easiest way is if you're in the Capture tab here, you're going to notice in this EPICOR ECM that's highlighted in blue, which means that it's active. You see that I have it running, and then you could see here install, and this will run the client installer for us. Okay. Now, you'll notice it's actually in my system. It's in my system tray, so it sits there and it basically just monitors and automatically will allow you to do all these things. So you'll notice here, see these check boxes? Notice how I can check those? That is the client, okay? If I click on browse and I want to select multiple sales orders using my shift or control key, that is using the client. Now, notice if I now close the client here, that is now, as you notice, grayed out, and none of these things, I can't click, none of these things are clickable. And when I try to select more than one document, it won't allow me, okay? So you're, without the client application, you're severely limited as to what you can do. Now I'm just gonna start the client again, and you'll see at the top this little bar will be blue and all my stuff is now highlighted and I can move forward. Okay, so from a capture perspective, again, you have the scan dialog here. When you create your different profiles, as you'll notice, the ability to select your resolution, and you can save these as different profiles. So as you're scanning different types of documents, you can decide what you want to do. Now, if your scanner supports duplex, which means it's going to scan front and back, you're going to select the duplex option. Now, if you do remove blank pages and the back of the duplex document is blank, it will delete those blank pages. Okay, you got auto size detection. But for the most part, I would do something like 240 black and white. Letter is the preferred size. If you know you're going to be capturing all legal documents, and I would set up a legal profile or something to that effect. But we can say this is a black and white 240 DPI duplex. And you'll see here, this looks all good. I can enable deskew and despeckle. Just know if you are bringing in PDF-A formatted documents, if you enable any type of image enhancement, it will get rid of the A layer. And A is the long-term archive format. So just know a lot of municipalities that I work with say, hey, I lost the PDF-As. And the reason is because we're rasterizing. So don't use deskew, despeckle, or any of those other types of capabilities. Okay, now on the import side, again, same idea. Now you'll notice this pre-processing, like what is that? That is essentially when the document comes in, we render every document into an image. So if it was a Word document or PDF, we render it into our image viewer control. That will allow you to do things like page manipulation, removing pages, adding pages, merging documents together. So by enabling pre-process, it just reduces the need to upload a document and wait for it to do all that stuff. It will also allow for, as you see here, some image enhancement, removing blank pages, some document split methods that you can run ahead of time. Auto view is essentially if you want to index right away. I want to capture something and immediately prompted to enter the metadata and tag it. If you don't enable that, it will go into your workflow queue. Okay. All right, so let's talk a little about some concepts here, right? So out of the box, Docstar, from a separation and classification perspective, there is an intelligence there. Okay, so you would have to separate all your like documents. Okay, so I have my invoices over here, I have my bill ladings over here, and by selecting the content type, AP invoice, when you're capturing, you would scan all those or capture all those invoices at one time, and it would know that those are invoices. And then you would scan bills of lading separately, and you would know it's bills of lading. And then, you know, the only options you have are blank page, page count, or barcode separation. Right. So if you knew every invoice was 3 pages, if you knew every bill of lading was 2 pages, or you put a blank piece of copy paper, you could process those documents. The difficulty is in a lot of, you know, use cases that we're seeing, what happens if I want to capture all those documents together? I want to capture the invoice, the bill lading, the packing list, the purchase order. I want to scan it all together. I want the system to know what each document is and then separate and extract the data relatively smartly. So that's where we get into IDP. You're going to hear a lot about IDP, intelligent document processing. Think about it as intelligent document capture, right? And I'm going to show you a couple of different flavors we have for that. So out of the box, we'll kind of show some of these feature functionality. I'm going to show the barcode specifically and how you could separate, but those are essentially a legacy type classification separation utilities. Now we have the ability to use Microsoft Azure in our IDP products to automatically build models around classification and have it use neural learning to be able to separate documents. Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple examples of that today that I think are pretty compelling. The second piece is the data extraction, right? So out of the box, Docstar has zone OCR or full text OCR. So it's going to read computer generated text, primarily English. It does have a few other languages, but not super language specific. So if you do need lots of other languages, then IDP would be a better solution. So it also supports barcode recognition. So the ability to read a 1 or 2D barcode and extract that value. But there's no handwriting, no auto learning. It's not going to learn from mistakes, and it's very specific to zone. Like, hey, look in this XY coordinate always in this top right-hand corner all the time for this value. But what happens if my documents are unstructured, or I have handwriting, or I want to automate it so that somebody doesn't have to manually key that information? And again, that's where we get into IDP, intelligent document processing. We have a couple solutions. Many of our customers have kind of gone this way. But basically, you don't build models. You use either something like a Chat GPT. I think everybody's familiar with that, or any one of those large language generative AI models, or something like we call it neural document AI. It's kind of the older version, which is basically these pre-built models. And again, you build models, and it will read any handwriting, any language. It will read things upside down and sidewards, and it gives you a lot of flexibility to do some complex type stuff. We're going to show this a little later in the demonstration. But I wanted to set the stage as to, what Docstar does, and it's a great ECM document management. But if you want to do some advanced technology from a capture side, and again, a lot of that's around labor savings, right? So removing manual keying and mistakes and all that kind of stuff is more and more important today. All right, so let's talk specifically about the 8 different ways that you can use Docstar specifically. Okay, so we talked a little bit about email capture with the client itself. Okay, so this is if you have geographically distributed locations. We primarily use this for when you have vendors that are emailing you invoices. We'd set up AP Invoices at yourdomain.com. We'd monitor that. We suck in all the emails and the attachments, and then somebody can either manually adjudicate it, or which I'll show you with our new IDP. You basically can just automate the entire extraction. Now, out of the box, I would say you don't want to use this for any confidential documents. So if you have healthcare information, clearly you don't want to put that in an email, because email is clear text. It's just not a secure method. So this would be good for your more transactional documents. Now, out of the box, you get all of the header data from the email will come over. Okay, like the to, the from, the subject. The subject will go into the title field within Docstar. And then theoretically, you can then trigger a workflow downstream, right? The second is drag and drop, or using a batch import. We showed this quick setup with the contracts. So specifically, we'll be able to drag and drop particular documents in here, and then automatically process them. So for instance, I guess the downside would be you would have to have a folder for content type. Okay, so you can only assign a folder, and dragging into that folder, it will go to one content type. So what I'm going to do here is, you'll notice in my client, I have a batch import here. Okay, and all I'm doing is I'm monitoring this every 15 seconds, and it'll bring it into the contracts content type. No, you don't see anything that says workflow or anything, and in this case, it says folder class. Basically, all you're selecting is the content type, and the default workflow will execute. The inbox, the folder security, the parent folder, none of that is useful in this particular case. All right, so I have this folder, and there's nothing in it, so I'm not cheating. And this gets, every 15 seconds, it gets monitored. It will then essentially delete it out of this location. You do, whatever that location is, you do have to have full rights to that location for the application to properly delete after it's been picked up. So we don't have to wait. Oh, and there it gets picked up. All right, where is it? All right, so we'll go in now to our workflow, and you're going to see here, if we come to our all workflows, okay, all workflow, you'll see right here is that contract we brought in at 10:23 a.m. As you can see, pre-processing already rendered the document. Okay, next approach is using what we call structured zone OCR, where every document that comes in for this content type, we want to look in the same area, right? So we'll show a purchase order in this particular case, but these are typically things you internally generate, right? This isn't going to be gray for a vendor invoice or something to that effect. Basically, we look in that particular XY coordinate. The difficulty a lot of times is there's not enough white space. So when that zone shifts up and down, it might grab a little bit of other lines or other characters maybe around it. So the more that zone is isolated, the better option you're going to have, the better results you're going to have. Now, this also primarily only works on single values. So if you have columns of data, this isn't going to work for you. Okay, this is really just, hey, I want to extract a single value. It has to be computer generated text. It won't work really well on handwriting unless it's really clear block handwriting, and I've seen that work. Now, without getting too technical here, we do a lot of what we call regular expression, regex. So we can draw a box around a whole area and then look for a key value pair. So we typically do this with check remittance, right? So the check is very structured, but at the top, you don't know how many invoices it's going to pay. So what we can actually do is draw a box around the whole top and then search through that OCR for specific key value pairs, something like invoice number, invoice date, check number, things like that. So if you were interested in leveraging this tool internally, we can utilize regular expression searching from a larger zone of data. Okay, so let's take a quick look at what that looks like. All right, so here if you do have rights to content type builder, this little you'll see that little cogwheel thing, and then next to each field is this little box. Okay, so like for instance, if I wanted to grab, I don't know, the PO number. This one doesn't have a PO number, but we'll just say this. Okay, so I want to grab this area. I just draw a box around it. Okay, and then it will always look in that particular area, and you can see what it extracted, and you can see it's using OCR, not barcode. And then you also see by default, these are all the languages that are supported. Now, typically, I just use English here, and you could see this would now extract every time this type of document comes in. It's going to look in that top left corner in that region to extract that data automatically. Okay, now two different ways to implement it. You could do it this way, which is probably not the preferred way. You'd probably want to use it in a workflow. You know, when we get to our 301, which is our next webinar around workflow, we're going to be focusing on how do you build these types of templates within a workflow to do this kind of in an automated fashion. But right, so the next one we're going to talk about cover pages. So this is ideal for employee terminated human resources for terminated employees. Okay, so this is where you're going to batch scan. This doesn't work well in transactional documents because creating the barcode takes longer than it does probably just keying, you know, two fields or a field in. Okay, so we typically use, you know, barcodes, just font like Times New Roman, and we support 1 and 2D barcodes. And so what you would do is there's essentially two options here. Barcodes will not only separate, so every time it hits a barcode, it will separate, but it will also extract the data. Versus Zone OCR in the prior example, that will only just extract data. You can't separate based on a zone and the OCR it's reading. So barcode's really helpful. Now, what we typically use is like a Word mail merge. So you give us a set of data in like an Excel spreadsheet, and then we print out cover sheets for you. So this works really well where there's like a back file or there's a defined set of data entry parameters that you'd want to create the barcode from. So I have a little barcode cover sheet creator. I did it in Word or Excel. And again, you just basically, it's a font. So when you go to like Calibre, you just select the barcode font. And these are the 1D barcodes are free. You can get them off online. It's just a quick and easy way to set these up. So what does that look like? So if we come in here now, and I'm going to do a capture, and let's go to our HR example, and I'm going to browse, and I'm going to grab what I'll call an HR cover sheet. Okay. And so we're going to see here, I'm going to drag this over a little bit. So we're going to see a 8-page document come in, and then the barcode cover sheet. And as you see here, the barcode cover sheet, we have the first one, and it's Howard Stern. It's a resume. And then his resume is page 2. So basically hits that first page, says, oh, it's for Howard. It's a resume. Put that in Howard's folder, and it deletes the cover page. Okay. So that's one of the benefits of, you'll see here, if you won't see I don't have a barcode license, but one of the abilities with the barcode license is to select change in barcode value. So you have the ability to change in a barcode value or split on a specific barcode value. And then we have Maggie's W4, and then the 2 pages behind it were Maggie's W4. So what happens essentially every time it hits that separator page, it will automatically split and then index the following page. And then again, we have Brent's W4. So if we upload this, go in now, you'll see Howard's resume here. So it imported Howard's resume. So that cover sheet basically indexed these 2 fields and also separated this document from the other documents. Basically, that 8-page document got split into 3 separate document sets, and it indexed it right into the appropriate folder. Okay, so let's talk a little about the print driver and the Office integration. So I'll do both of these together. So if you're looking to print from a screen, maybe you're in your ERP system, maybe you're in Adobe Acrobat or wherever you want to be, you can actually just print into the solution and it'll create a PDF of it. Okay, so again, this is on the modules tab within the client is where you'll install the PDF import driver. And then the second piece also is the Microsoft Office connector. So this supports all the new Office integrations. We're on M365, it supports that. This is going to allow you to also integrate for check-in, check-out, and versioning processes. So to print, we just do File, Print, and you'll see Docstar PDF. So it shows up like a print driver or like any other print driver. Now, the difference is when it creates the PDF, it now prompts you with the indexing dialog. So we know this is contract. So we'll say, webinar 1, and you can see it's going to go through that contracts workflow, hit upload, and now it's a PDF contract in the contracts workflow. Okay, so very easy. Now on the Microsoft Office integration, you're going to notice here we have the ability to have this ribbon bar, and then when I click that, it does the same thing. The difference is this is going to go in as a native docx file. So we'll come in here and say webinar 1, and then hit upload. So it saves it in its native format. We're not rasterizing, creating an image. We're simply saving it in its native format, which Docstar always maintains. You'll see both of those documents, and that is the structured, semi-structured. So this now is delving more into the IDP space. Okay, so if you thought, hey, I just want to automatically just take all my invoices in and have it separate and extract the data and, feed Docstar and maybe even line item detail, that's where you get into what we call EPICOR IDC, okay, or IDP. Same thing, intelligent document capture, intelligent document processing. But this is where you kind of create templates, where you kind of create this neural learning. This isn't using generative AI and all the ChatGPT stuff, but this is going to leverage basically our ability to have a full EPICOR solution. IDC feeds ECM. So a lot of you have ECM now or Docstar, and this would be the capture component that goes with it. EPICOR IDC Okay, now there is some setup here that I've already done, but we're going to capture some documents and all the same capture methods, monitor a folder, scanning, drag and drop, 6 pages, but 5 invoices. So the system will automatically separate based on a change in an invoice number. Okay, so this is a little bit different approach where we say, hey, we know these are all invoices. So separate everything and then find the invoice number on the first page and compare it to the invoice number on the second page. If they're the same, we merge together. If they're different, we keep them separated. If we don't find an invoice number, it will keep that to the prior page. So things like following pages like bills of lading, packing slips, and stuff like that. All right, so now we come in and we can load the batch. And so what happens is this is the data verification. So a human would run these through a few times. And then after it builds this knowledge base, essentially kind of creating a model. So as you can see, the first 2 pages are one document. It figured out that it was a multi-page invoice. Here, it didn't know what the PO number, so it's prompting you. And not all you have to do is just click. So you could click on the right on the image, and then it populates that value. Now, going forward, it won't make that mistake again. Now, you'll see even line item information that rolls to multiple pages. And as you can see here, it will handle the page rollover and pagination functionality. It also allows for footer data extraction. So things like freight, tax, that might fall on the bottom of the last page, it enables. And as you move through, every invoice looks and feels different. We know they're all invoices, very common synonyms and terms, but it's, a different look and feel. That PO number somewhere different. The subtotals, anything in red, it doesn't like. So we can come down and triage that. So we can say, yeah, remove that region and then grab this moving forward, and it'll then not make that mistake. It also supports tabular. So for instance, here, you'll notice how it grabbed all the line items automatically. But if it didn't, you just click where it finds certain information. And then it will, on the second row, it'll automatically just figure out that grid and apply and extract that information. Automation statistics, so you can show automation rates, accuracy, user productivity, turn time. So it could really quantify the hard cost labor savings associated with this type of a solution. Okay. All right. So what I now want to do is talk to you a little bit about an advanced tool. And in this case, let's talk about how we automatically classify. So using neural classification, I'm going to show a couple of examples here, but we can use and train the model. So if you're getting common formats, tax documents, operating statements, that you might see like a defined set of, then we can use Microsoft Azure or our IDP classification engine to say, hey, every time you see this as a first page, or every time you see this as a document, classify it as this and separate. Okay. Now, there's other types of approaches, things like where you saw in the previous example, where we took that 6-page PDF and then we made 5 invoices out of that based on the change in a metadata field. So in that case, we're not building a model. We're saying every time you read a page, extract something unique like an invoice number and then compare it to the next page. And if they're the same, merge them together. If they're not, keep them apart. So it's one of those types of approaches. But classification in the cloud is a lot less expensive than data extraction in the cloud. So as a result, using classify out pages approach, where say you have 200 pages, but you only need 20 of them, well, let's figure out which pages you need and which pages you don't need, and then only extract those pages. This will result in significant cost savings when you're processing. Now, all the cloud tools use and are licensed per page, okay? Whereas the prior one, Ancora, is licensed per document, or Docstar IDC is all based on documents. So if it's 4 pages or 10 pages or 50 pages, it counts as one version. And you'll notice there's, this is a multi-page document. There's 87 pages, right? And each one is it's pretty defined. You can see there a personal. You get things like weather logs. You have snow desk logs. You have all these different kinds, right? So what I did was, and they're defined. You can clearly see they're color coordinated. They have specific labels. So what I did is you notice on the right, and this is Microsoft Azure's custom classifier. So essentially, I just added each of those different kinds of pages. So you could see when I click on it, all I had to tell it was, what is that? It's a telephone type. It's a, almanac. It's a correspondence. So I add all the different kinds. And then when I come in, I tell this is, a snow report. When I now process that document, it will automatically separate it. Okay, 19 pages, process, or pages. And then I already have one pre-done just for, this was it. Okay. And then you'll see on the left how that 19-page document got broken into individual. And then you'll see each individual form type, when I click on it, notice the fields change. So not only can I classify that 19-page document into individual types of forms within it, but then I can extract differently based on that. And even here you'll see, handwriting. It's able to read all that handwriting with very good confidence. Same here. You'll notice anything that says correspondence or what I consider following pages or attachments, and I don't want to do anything with those. Okay, here we have a number of different tools that are available from AI and machine learning. You've probably all heard those terms. So utilizing we could use any of these processors, but Google, Amazon, Azure. I'm just going to pick Azure for this purpose here. So you'll notice this is Azure's what they call AI document intelligence. You're going to notice here we have these pre-built models. So think about these as common use case documents that have already been figured out, and they have a AI tool that will automatically extract that relative information. Okay, and you see all of them here. There's 13 different kinds, tax forms, credit cards. But what happens if you need to build a custom model, a model that just doesn't exist? We could come in and build those in our studio here. Now, I'm going to show this as it relates to invoices, and I'm going to show you ChatGPT and how it can extract relative information using natural language processing. So here, this was that snow report, and we're basically saying, hey, look in these areas. But all I have to do is highlight an area and say, oh, what is that? What field do I need to tag that to? So you build these models that you see here, and then when you build the model, you get a model ID. The downside to model building is constantly keeping the model up to date. So in cases where there's a lot of unstructured data, things like commercial leases, contracts, where you have, columns of information contained within paragraphs of text. Okay, and then we'll process them. And then we'll see that these documents have been processed, and then you can see on the right, these are all the fields that get returned by default. So I didn't set anything up. So I sent that to the invoice pre-built model, and it automatically, I don't need a knowledge base. I don't need to send things through it. I don't need to train it. It just automatically will extract the relative information without human intervention. Okay, so as you can see, when I click on those areas, it will automatically show where it extracted that relative data from. And it could do things like pagination, where you have tables of data and see how it's, extracting that data. But you can't uptrain. There's no ability to say, hey, you did that wrong. That's where we can do some programming to process these documents a little more efficiently. But as you see, every invoice looks and feels different. The data is in different spots. This kind of normalizes that data for us. You can see here that actually does have a dash in it. But it's able to deinterlace a lot of that information as well. You'll see how the billing address recipient and the actual bill to address get deinterlaced. Same up here. You'll notice how it's smart enough to know that that's actually the company name, and this is the actual address. AI. So here we're going to leverage AWS Textract. So Amazon Web Services. So we're going to take in a paper letter. So something like this. Okay, it's a handwritten letter, 2 pages. So here we're not actually building a model. We're just saying, hey, when did this accident occur? So this is an insurance-based document. So when did that, accident occur? Who did it occur to? So you can see here, the claim number, but what was the date of the accident? So we're using natural language processing. We have done no setup at all. All I'm asking is, what date did the accident occur? That's the only thing I'm telling the Azure OpenAI ChatGPT engine what I want. And you'll notice how it extracted from here, not up here, right? So you can also give it sentiment. You could also ask it questions. Is there a mention of settling quickly? Yes, no. Was there a mention of an attorney? So we could use sentiment. We can also use yes, no questions to automate the extraction of those documents. And a lot of you might have heard of prompt engineering. That's what this is. So again, you're asking questions to the AI engine to return data, which is a much different approach than what we're used to in setting up XY coordinates, trying to deal with handwriting, different script, handwriting, cursive and block lettering. All that's very difficult, but using these new tools, we can automate a lot of that process.